Hello friends, it's Armstrong here from Other Miniatures, and today we're gonna be working on some spaceships to add to the collection. I decided that I want to fit it within a 10 centimeters, so about 4 inches size, and yeah, you know, that's kind of creates a little bit of a problem because that peg is 7.2 centimeters long and this peg, for example, is 6 centimeters long, so it gives us a massive limitation on what we can do. Of course, we can use those tiny ones, which are what, 3 centimeters, so almost 3, I think, 2.5. Yeah, for most of the gribblies. And oh yeah, while I was in Poland, I got those. Yeah, those are like little twerks. Yeah. Why I say twerks? Because they have 2 prongs, not 3. Yeah, but they are another thing that we can incorporate into our builds, and they are actually only 9 centimeters long. So yeah, let's try to use that and see if we're gonna have enough stuff. Let me just see. I think I forgot about the toothpicks as another thing that we can use. So I have all of the little bits of wood on the table already. So I have all of the orbs and squares and everything else. So let's try to figure out, you know, something small that's actually going to look within the ancient fleet aesthetics and not going to be extremely weirdly big. So I'm thinking this as a main weapon. Yeah, just, you know, some sort of a power, like you know, it creates power and just shoot it out. So some sort of a lance, I guess. Yeah, and I have a gel super glue. Like, I went out and I bought gel super glue because I got a little bit sick and tired of having my fingers constantly covered in super glue. So I figure maybe gel gonna help. Gives me a little bit more of a working time with super glue, and maybe, just maybe, it's gonna stop me from gluing my fingers together more times than needed. I don't really think that there is any time that you need to glue your fingers together, but you know my skill level when it comes to gluing fingers. I'm actually a professional, so yeah. All right, I mean professional at gluing fingers together, yeah, don't get me wrong. All right, so we have like a very basic shape already kind of figured out. Now let's just see where I want to go from here. I'm thinking maybe just give it a little bit of a lip on the bottom, so you can put one of those orbs in here. Okay, it's actually harder to work with the gel super glue because it's harder to squeeze it out. But other than that, I'm actually quite happy with my choice today, thus far. Of course, once I'm gonna glue my fingers together, we're gonna see again. So I'm thinking maybe only one side cannon, we don't gonna do the other side. That's my thought so far. And maybe do a little bit of asymmetry and push this a little bit back. Let's see. Yeah, because we're gonna be using a shorter one. Yeah, so not the 7 one, and we're gonna be pushing it. Would that fit in within that 10 centimeter? Wow, literally. And if I'm gonna extend it back, it's gonna be 11, but let's just do it. Yeah, it's still gonna be fitting within smaller kind of build for me, especially lately, because I've been doing a lot of those, you know, kind of capital ships builds. So something smaller would be refreshing. So just give it like a centimeter of a this. I lost the word. Sorry. I'm thinking, do I want the skewers to give it like fins? It might not be a bad idea. Let's just see. I'm thinking, you know, we have this in here. We can put this as a fin, but then it's, or we can put it maybe in the middle as a fin. Well, I need to get the wings somehow, because the wings were the big part of the entire ancient fleet aesthetics. Sorry, like I haven't built any of those for a while now. It's been like 5 weeks. So maybe if I take this, add this as a wings. Maybe like that, but the asymmetry is, well, maybe they're gonna be the ancient fleet, ancient enemy, yeah, and then we have a different aesthetic to design. Yeah, let's do that. That's not gonna be ancient fleet, that's gonna be the ancient enemies. So we may do a, we're gonna go along this line, just chop it out like that. It's not gonna be easy. It's a bamboo at the end of the day. It's not the hardest grass in the universe, but it's still quite decent. Well, I guess it is the hardest grass on earth. So we're gonna add that fin in here. Okay. It's very asymmetric, which I like. Let's see if we can use the orbs to our advantage. We're gonna go with the smallest ones. Maybe 3 of them. And we can just maybe put one, like I said, in here. It can be a sensor cluster. Or maybe a bridge or something. Yeah? Oh, it actually works so much better with the gel super glue. Oh, okay. Let's put another one in here. That's gonna be the bridge, I guess. Like I'm gonna be honest, yeah? What I'm saying is a bridge. It kind of doesn't make sense in my own opinion. Because if I were designing a spaceship, yeah, the main stuff would be inside of the most protected part of the ship. Yeah, so I wouldn't be putting, like, you know, bridges on the top, just because I guess, you know, in most cases there wouldn't be windows, it would be just normal displays. But yeah, you know, it is just the human way of thinking. You know, I want windows, so I will add them for whatever reason. And I'm just thinking if I want to add another one. No, I am actually okay with 2. Now let's see if the little hexagon is gonna give us anything. I'm just thinking if we are not repeating the same kind of design ideas that we did with the previous one. But I think that we can do a little bit of asymmetry in general. Yeah, like I tend to build symmetrical stuff a lot. So this entire asymmetry is somewhat refreshing. And of course, even though I tried my best, I still managed to glue myself to the model. So 1, maybe 2 in here. Sorry, I am actually sick. It always happens to me when I'm coming back from Poland. I get something on the airport. You know, this time I got two things, which is very, very annoying. But what can we do? Now, what else would we do to make it look distinct from any other spaceships? Because at this point, I just built an asymmetrical ship that isn't really all that different from whatever I built before. I actually like this broken one, so I'm gonna add it just here to cover that seam. All right. Don't move, stay in place. I really want to make it distinct, but if I'm gonna start messing with it, like this is already distinct enough because of the asymmetry. But I might be messing with it by trying too hard to make it distinct. Yeah, this is the dilemma, you know, you want to make something look different, and then by adding stuff, you're gonna make it look exactly the same. Like, you know, I really like the the entire, you know, fins on the ancient fleet. But if I'm gonna use it in here, if that's supposed to be a enemy ship, yeah, there wouldn't be that distinction. Of course, we got that marking, you know, that we make with those 3 hexagonal plates, which was another of the distinctions of that ancient fleet. So I'm just thinking, you know, what would be the enemy's kind of distinctive part? Maybe simply the lack of symmetry would be the distinctive part of this fleet. All right, let me just, you know, get back to you on that in a few seconds after I overthink it too much. Okay, so while I was pondering what to do with it, I have a little bit of epiphany, I guess, well, idea, whatever you want to call it, and figure out that I want to add this in here. It's gonna help me to cover the seam and add some sort of a, you know, lance weapon again. And then I was just thinking, you know, about those fins, yeah, and something sitting on top of that fin would actually work very nicely as well, so I'm gonna go with that as well. And as you may see, the amount of ships did increase because I just built 2 extra, so I got 3 of them. So it's look like a mass produce, not a single ship. Well, in general, you know, if you have like a civilization that is building a battle fleet, there's gonna be, I guess, standard template for the ships, and then of course you're gonna have like special use ships. Like I'm thinking, you know, like Silence from the Battlestar Galactica, yeah, they would be building ton of ships that look exactly the same, and humans, you know, would try to kind of tinker with, you know, the ships in any way possible. But yeah, I think that this is it for the build part. Now, of course, I need to mount it, so yeah, I don't gonna be adding any more of those little wiggles. I think that this is kind of distinctive enough. If I gonna want to work on a bigger ships, then I can figure out, you know, the more of a visual language for them. But at this stage, this entire asymmetry, and kind of works. So we'll see where we can go from here. So again, I'm gonna base them, and I'm gonna put the primary codes on them, and then we're gonna figure out where to go from there. Alright, so we have the base coat put down. I first painted it black, then of course I added white, just to get a little bit of better layer for the beginning. So I'm gonna be using this Mage Cast Magenta, which is a lovely looking color in my opinion, as a base coat for this army, for this fleet. We'll see how it's gonna turn out. I'm just adding a little bit of the speed paint medium to water it down, because I'm gonna be honest, I don't have the airbrush thinner. I ran out of it ages ago, and I haven't ordered a new one just yet. Yeah, but it's like you can see on the brush, it is a lovely color. Let's try to add it to our spaceships, and we'll see how it's gonna turn out. I love it. Okay, so that's the first one base coated properly. Now let's go with the second one and the third one. I actually love the airbrush and the rattle cans for the simple reason they make this entire process 10 times faster, and because I'm not a huge fan of painting in general, it fixes my biggest problem, that I don't have to spend ages on adding the colors to the fleets and to any of the models really. Yeah. Oh. I think with this color would even look good on black, yeah, but white just give it more vibrance. Looks good. Let's just look through the previous ones. It should be somewhat dry, so especially with those, kind of messed up, what do you call them, pegs. It's hard to get into every nook and cranny to get the even coat. Let's have a look in here, because I can see what I missed in here. Oh, that's my fingers, yeah. Alright, now let's give it 5-10 minutes to dry. Then I'm gonna come back with the white paint, do a little bit of, blocking out the stuff that I want to have in different colors. And then we're gonna go with the dry brush with the Diviner Light, which is, the same kind of line of paints, but I didn't buy the entire line. I only bought those two because it was in the local store. Yeah, so whenever I have time, I'm probably gonna get myself a full line, because I love those paints. I'll be right back. Okay, so it looks messy as hell, usual for me, but we are almost done with the paint job. What I want to do is use this diviner light to just dry brush the entire thing. Those paints are very, very thick, so it's even hard to sometimes mix them and squeeze them out of the bottle, which kind of works because they are very good at covering. Yeah. So let's just work it into the bristle. Now let's just give it a couple of wiggles on the paper, and we're gonna try to just give it this little bit of a pinkish hue over the purple. It's probably gonna look more frosted than anything else, but still, that's the idea for now, yeah? If I'm gonna change my mind later on, I can always repaint it. This is nothing expensive, just wood pegs. And you know, generally, even though I spent quite a lot of money on the toys, I always just look at them as toys. At the end of the day, I remember when I was still living with my parents when I was young, my nephew came around and he started playing with my Warhammer army. At that stage I only owned like a singular Warhammer 40k army. It was a Nurgle Space Marines. Yeah, and I'm talking old ones, you know, the metal ones. So you can imagine anything that broke was kind of a hard deal. And my mom knew how much time I put into those toys and everything. And my nephew started playing with them and he broke them. Yeah, my mother started panicking. Obviously, you know. But she was like, when I came home, my mother was like, Sebastian, before you go into your room, I need to warn you to don't get angry and everything, yeah. But, you know, like, I already talked to your nephew and, you know, explained to him and everything, and I walk into the room and I see, you know, all of my Warhammer minis, you know, broken up. And I was like, Mom, why are you panicking? What's the problem? And she was like, oh, you know, you're paying so much attention to them, you're painting them and everything, and you know, he broke them. And I was like, Mom, they are just toys. I need super glue to fix it. That's all. My mom was like, what? Yeah, because like, you know, of course, yeah, I did spend hours painting, yeah, and everything, but come on, like for kids, they look like toys, yeah. And at the end of the day, you know, they are, well, very expensive toys, yeah. And you know, like with, especially with the, you know, part plastic, part metal models of that era, you know, when you have like, I did buy like a lot of, I did but buy my first Nurgle army second hand, yeah. So it was really just, you know, like a lot of different minis assembled from different packs, and I have like a couple of those old plasticky ones as well, which I converted and so on. Yeah, so like the worst that he could really do was to break off the weapons and break the arms. Yeah, and like I know it wasn't malicious. He was just playing with it a little bit rougher than, you know, whoever else would be playing. So I was just like, yeah, we're just gonna put it back together, you know, a little bit of super glue, and especially with Nurgle, you know, it wouldn't really make much of a difference. So I was absolutely not angry. Right now, you know, when I drop the minis and I break them, I'm like, butterfingers, you know, butterfingers, and I'm a little bit angry with myself. Yeah, but generally they are toys. At the end of the day, most of them was probably designed for kids. I'm not talking about Warhammer, yeah? But even this, what we are doing right now, yeah? This is designed for gaming, not for displaying. So if I ever have opportunity to play the game, I would be using them in the game. The thing is, I live in such a weird spot right now that getting people to play with me, especially in here, I don't own a car, but I do work on the driving license right now. So maybe in a couple of months, oh, of course, my fingers have to be covered in paint, I would be able to go to the, you know, stores that are a little bit farther away and, get some games in and relearn the systems, especially like Warhammer 40k. Like, I haven't played in ages and a half. So yeah, it would be nice. And the Warhammer Fantasy or the Old World, I would love to get into that as well. Yeah, I do actually own quite substantial armies. Like, I want to get my nephew, the one that I mentioned, into Warhammer, but he have different hobbies right now. And he is much older than he used to be. But I still sent him, a couple of resin 3D printers. He's doing Dungeons and Dragons, which I'm very happy about. Yeah. And he asked me actually about the Warhammer 40k. He wants to, he was like, I want the army that can do magic and, that is chaosy and everything. I'm like, yeah, you're going for something like, 1,000 Suns, or something like that. I explained to him that they are the magic-y guys. Yeah, the rubric marines and so on. So he was like, yeah, I'm just gonna print an army for myself. And I have no clue why my brain went into this entire situation. But yeah, toys. So yeah, that's the blue color. And we have our, like I said, the dry brush. Yeah, I think it actually help a little bit with the entire thing. It's not brilliant, it's not beautiful, it is just what it's supposed to be. And now I just want to do a little bit of a metallics. Yeah, I can probably dry brush the entire thing in the metallics and it would kind of give it... Oh, come on, paint. Don't be so stuck up. That's so... So it drop one drop, yeah? And then the ball again blocks the exit, which is frustrating beyond belief. But what I want to say, just pick up a couple of bits and pieces with the metallics. So what I want to do, of course I have to put my finger into fresh paint, because why would I ever not? Yeah. So I want this one thing to be metallic 100%. And like, I seen, people painting the wooden spaceships, and my god, some of them are just great. Yeah, like, people just pay much more attention to the paint jobs, and glory to them. Yeah, but I'm not one of those people. I just, like, I would probably, get myself together one day and learn how to paint correctly. But like, 2 years in art college didn't force me to paint correctly. So I think that getting a hobby together, might be the good reason for me. It's just like, I don't despise painting, but it is just, for me, the most boring part of the entire hobby. And when it comes to my favorite part, it is building stuff. I like building. Yeah, when I was a child, my mother told me that she could give me a box of blocks. Yeah, that's actually a correct phrasing. And leave me in the crib, and I would be there, building castles and everything, and there would be no child, as she was saying. Alright, let's give it 5 minutes to dry and throw it on the spin table, because I don't have more of the family stories in my brain right now. And we are done and dusted and painted and everything. So yeah, there we have it. 3, I don't know how to call them yet. We will figure out the name of that fleet, in the future. But yeah, we have 3, I don't know, plasma fighters, plasma lance fighters, or they wouldn't be like, small crew. I would think that this kind would have a crew of like, 150, maybe 200 people, so quite decent size. But yeah, this was fun. I built 3 of them for a change instead of just 1. So yeah, done and dusted, and they actually look decent even with the entire asymmetry going along. You know, it still works. So you know what to do. If you like this video, rate, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, family, and whoever else want to watch it. And everyone have a great day and take care. Bye bye.